All right, Matt, are you with me? There we go.
I
Ladies and
am.
gentlemen, there we
Hello.
go. Matt Kloos, great to have you.
Thank you very much. Excited to be at my first, I'm almost ashamed to say, fundraise con, but I'm
Well,
a new kid on the block.
no, well, great to have you. All of the previous ones are on our YouTube channels. If you wanted to have a look at any of the great sessions from prior years, you're welcome to. But Matt, great to have you here today. Matt is the CFO and one of the co-founders of CompariSure. And they've just done a really exciting $1 million deal with some really big VCs recently. And we've asked Matt to just kind of, share that a little bit about that fundraising journey with us today. Matt, so over to you.
Super. Thanks very much, Lo. Again, really appreciate being here today and able to, share our 2 cents from the journey we've been on. I think Keith gave a really nice bird's eye view overview of the landscape, from sort of 20 years of experience. My perspective is the opposite. It's the sort of worm's eye view from the trenches. So new entrepreneur on my first venture, 4 years in, but we've been through a couple of rounds of fundraising and very keen to share with fellow entrepreneurs who are looking to do the first round, looking to get into this whole fundraising story. And I think as entrepreneurs, the one thing we all love doing is sharing and helping fellow entrepreneurs. So I really hope I can achieve some of that today. But I've tried to summarize our journey so far in a couple of slides. They told me at Varsity, keep your slides simple and keep your messages clear. So that's what you'll get today. But I really just wanted to dive into the fundraising journey. As Lo said, who, what, where, when, what does it look like? Try shed a bit of light on the process from our perspective. So really just recapping our journey and to fellow first-time entrepreneurs out there. I think the first person and people you got to fundraise from is from yourself. You have to raise money from your personal finances. That means getting your significant other involved. That's almost the first fundraising journey you go through. Do I have enough money to sort of bootstrap this project for a little while? That is scary, managing a personal runway and a business runway. So you need some iron nerves to get through that. But it really helps you obviously just build a business and evolve to a degree where you can do a proper round of funding. So our first 2 years were very much like that. But at the end of 2019, we were very lucky to get 40i Capital on board, our first investor there. And I think something to note is just that every deal is so unique. So the peculiarity of this deal is we signed a term sheet with 40i Access Trust and a third investor, an institutional investor. But during the process of drawing up legals and getting to the end of the deal, we as a business sort of went through a pivot that led to quite a portfolio conflict with the other investor in one of their companies. So we had to have some real discussions and debates around, does it make sense to have two similar companies in the same portfolio? But I think the openness, the honesty, and the transparency with which we all approached it really helped. But again, just sort of the peculiarities of each deal and the fact that fundraising always takes longer than you think, especially when there's funny things that creep in. But an interesting outcome from that deal was that investors typically like to invest with other sort of institutions, co-investors. And that's what we were looking for, another sort of institutional partner. So we very quickly from that round went on to try and find another institutional partner, and we're very lucky to get Mkatu Wetu in partnership with Alan Gray on board. And then most recently, as Lo was saying, excited to have Havik lead our pre-series A and have 40i follow on. So I think that very, very, another important point is just, having guys that can back you from one round to the next. As a young entrepreneur, if you have guys that can do that, the signaling element of that is absolutely huge. So when you talk to investors, always good to know what their subsequent strategy for follow-ons are. Do they have some capital for subsequent rounds? That's a key point. But that's the journey we went on. And really, I'd just like to share a few lessons learned. Hopefully, there's some golden nuggets in here. It's a very personal perspective from the journey that we've been through. So firstly, a question you might be asking yourselves, when should we start fundraising? When is the time to start? And this makes me think of Hofstadter's law. So Hofstadter's law is a self-referencing law, which is very interesting. Things always take longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. So I think that very much sums up the fundraising process. It always takes longer than you think. it's very difficult to plan for that. So start early. Sort of a corollary that I've come up with is sort of the law of startup burn. Your cash always runs out quicker than you think, even when you take this law into account. So, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, we've got 12 months runway and it takes 6 months to raise funds, it's probably going to take 9 months to raise funds and your cash will probably only last 9 months. So you better get going, kind of thing. But yeah, it's never too early to start fundraising is what we found, especially because it also helps you build that rapport with investors. If you have a discussion with them and you follow up 6 months later and you can say, look what we've done. We did what we said we would do. We've hit our milestones. The credibility you build there is absolutely valuable. So second question you might often get asked, how much are you raising? And I think there it's very important to be decisive, but show flexibility. Ideally we'd like to raise 10 million, but if we don't manage to raise 10, we'll do this and this with 5 million. So be decisive, but really have a bit of flexibility, and also be very clear on the use of funds. So, if your investors ask you, well, why are you raising? And you say, well, I mean, we're a startup and we're burning, and that's what startups do. That's clearly not a good enough answer. So, you need to really give that a lot of thought. Look, things like, look, we're raising money to hire 2 devs to work on our product roadmap. We'd like to spend some money on product market fit, and like to move out of a garage into an office. Be clear on those use of funds, because you need to demonstrate what milestones you're going to hit with this money, what assumptions you're looking to prove, so that you can unlock the next round of funding. A question that I find tricky to answer is, what's your valuation? Investors will come in, they'll have a look, and one of the questions you early get is, what's your valuation? And I think it's almost meaningless to give a number unless you know what the investor's terms are. And a nice way to capture that is someone said, look, it's either your terms or my valuation, or my terms and your valuation. If an investor might say, sure, we'll give you your 200 million valuation, but it's going to be a 3 times lick pref, 8-year founder vesting, and full ratchet anti-dilution. Then, if you don't understand what those terms are, then, it's chalk and cheese, right? So firstly, those terms matter, the terms of economics and the terms of control. You need to really dig into those to make sure that you're on the same page. From there, I think the piece of advice that really stuck with me is get commitment first, then talk valuation with the interested parties. First reach the point of, do you like our business? Do you want to invest? And what Tanya mentioned earlier, articulating that vision, articulating your business, whose problem you're solving and why it matters, that really speaks volumes here. And, get your investors to buy into that first, and then say, look, we're reasonable founders. We're trying to get a reasonable deal. I'm sure we can, get the numbers to work out. So that was a piece of advice that stuck with me. And then finally, avoid the trap of trying to optimize for valuation. I think as founders, you're on LinkedIn and it's you're seeing these crazy valuations and deals, and you often, it's a very public metric, the valuation, but it's not what you're trying to optimize for. You're sort of trying to optimize for a good deal with good investors so that you can sort of get back to building the business. Fundraising is a massive distraction from the core, from building products that really solve users' problems. So really, a phrase I heard was, like fundraising and getting a deal is like being at a cocktail event where, someone comes around with a tray of snacks, and you better take something from that tray because you never know when it's going to come around again. And I think that's the thinking there as well. If you've got a good deal or reasonable deal from reasonable investors, that's probably worth taking if it ticks your other boxes. Then I think another big one to answer is, why do you like our VC firm? Investors will ask you, well, why us? It's not enough to say, well, you're the most well-known and you've got money. You need to really think it through and find smart money from smart people that know your sector. Do your homework. You want to say, be able to say something like, look, we've seen how you've helped your portfolio companies expand from South Africa into the rest of Africa. That's on our roadmap. That's why we want you to invest and help us do that. Also, it aligns expectations, makes sure you're all on the same page. So that's quite critical. And another point that's become clearer for me over time is chemistry matters big time. The chemistry that you feel with these, with your VC, with someone who's going to be on your board, letting someone into your cap table is like letting someone into your family, to be honest. And, the numbers matter, the deal matters, but chemistry with your VC partner, with the firm, with the, really matters. You're going to be in boardrooms, you're going to be in brainstorming sessions, and you really want to, have guys in your team who you just really enjoy working with. And so I think that's something that became a lot clearer for us over time. Then another question is this a reasonable term sheet? And that's if you're a first-time founder, you haven't raised money before, it's very difficult to answer. There's big information asymmetry. If you're a seasoned VC, you've probably seen hundreds of term sheets. If you're a founder, you're lucky to have seen a handful. So, there's some mistakes you can't afford to make, and it comes to the term sheet and the terms in the deal. If you're trying to get your product market fit right and you spend some money on a few experiments and you make those mistakes, well, you're learning things that only you could learn. But if you make mistakes with a term sheet that you could have got input from, you could have got advice on, that's something you'll never forgive yourself for. So share that term sheet far and wide. I don't mean literally, don't email the term sheet as it stands with VC names to, everyone but take the salient points, summarize it, and share it for input. That stood us in good stead. As I mentioned, with fellow entrepreneurs, with old professors, you name it, guys are very willing to help, and help you get the structuring right, make sure that you are, doing and getting a fair deal. And it's a strong sign, if you get a term sheet with terms that are out of whack with the market and with industry norms, that then it's really a leading sign from, are these the VCs I want to be working with? But luckily most, yeah. Finally, what's the easiest way to fundraise? I think the easiest way to fundraise is convince investors you don't need the money. Ironic as it sounds, you just show that you got to sort of bluff your way through it, act confident, talk the talk, because, if you come across desperate, it's not a good starting point from there. And then negotiate hard, your VC will really respect you for it. It helps get things off to the right foot. And, they want to see that in you. They want to know these are guys that are going to fight for deals, that are going to close deals. I think that's a key piece. Don't be afraid to do that. That's it sort of from my side. If you're a budding entrepreneur, final thoughts, you must read Paul Graham. If you haven't already heard of Paul Graham, you're like, an Indian that doesn't know Sachin Tendulkar, legend of the space. And these two books, Secrets of Samuel Road, a great one, and then Venture Deals. A lot of exciting info in there. But I hope that was helpful. That's sort of been our experience, a couple of nuggets, and really keen to help fellow entrepreneurs navigate this journey. That's what those that came before us did for us. So we'd love to do the same. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Matt. Some amazing golden nuggets there. Your terms, my valuation versus my terms, your valuation. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone's going to reference back to this session. Really, really good. We're gonna head on just for the sake of time, but appreciate you being here with us tonight. Thanks, man.
Thank you.